Disclaimer: the contents of Studio 151 podcasts and the TU Communication Disorders Connection podcast do not represent the views and beliefs of the University of Tulsa and the Mary Kay Chapman Center.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the TU Communication Disorders Connection podcast. This is your host, Alyssa Hall, and today I'm joined by two guests, not in the studio, but over Zoom. First guest joining us today is Kendra Choate, who is another first-year graduate student at the University of Tulsa. Kendra, it's good to have you here today.
It's good to be here, Alyssa. Thank you.
Our second guest today is Samantha Potrykus, who is an actor and is going to share a little bit about her experiences with voice therapy. Samantha, thanks for joining us today.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you, Alyssa.
Happy to have you. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it on over to Kendra to get us started with some questions.
So, Samantha, we would like to know a little bit more on why did you first seek out speech therapy and what kind of led to seeking out those services?
Great question. I recently completed a MFA in acting at the University of Houston. It's a 2-year program, very rigorous. And in the program, we act every day. We use our voices every day to an extraordinary length. And I was in a main stage production where we were in our large auditorium space, and coupled with also teaching at the time and taking acting classes that were very hard on my voice, just given the 13-hour days I was doing. I sought voice therapy to help use my voice in the best way. A little background is I also have rheumatoid arthritis. This would then come kind of into play as I went down this speech therapy rabbit hole with Dr. Annie Rubino. And yeah, so I sought out her services to help me, it sounds awful, but kind of get through this really tough time in my artistic life. I was using my voice and I could feel it being used incorrectly. And I wanted to use it to the best of its ability and not cause any damage down the line.
So, being a professional voice user, which I think is awesome, what are some of the techniques that you kind of worked on in therapy?
Great question. So, a lot of the time from the beginning, we spent a lot of just like barely coming on to sound, just like barely touching it. We started a lot with breath work because that's kind of where the voice starts, is on breath. And so we worked a lot with just barely touching sound and feeling the vibrations in the mouth. I have a tendency, as I'm probably doing now, to speak in the back of my throat or the back of my voice. I am a millennial, so naturally I grew up on the Kardashians and I want to talk back here in vocal fry, which isn't bad for your voice. I mean, it's not great, but I'm an actor and I use my voice and I want to be able to use it to its full capacity. So we did a lot of, touching the sound and then just barely even speaking, just to get the sound just to the front of my mouth, front of my instrument. Instead of talking back here, we would just practice having the words come out the front of my lips, and did a lot of like lip widening and narrowing in terms of like seeing how the voice would change when we would do that. And very almost elementary in just feeling where my vibrations were coming from and starting, because I wasn't even aware of that.
Do you ever catch yourself thinking about, how you're using your voice throughout the day, every day, and using some of those techniques or implementing them? And when do you see that the most?
All the time. Some of my favorite things that she taught me were just like humming. I'll kind of start my morning, especially if I know that I'm going to be using my voice a lot that day. Kind of starting the day just like barely making any sort of sound, and then I'll be walking my dog or making coffee in the morning and just humming to myself very, very quietly. A lot of our exercises we did together were making those vibrations wider, narrower, and kind of gliding through pitch range, which kind of is where I would now After I start my morning and I hum, especially if I'm driving, I'll just kind of like kind of go up and down through my range and really feel where my vibrations are strongest and kind of notice the shifts in them. Especially like as an actor, it's incredibly important to have a personal vocal warm up. So
Mhm.
before you're preparing any sort of, audition or rehearsal, or even if you're speaking like this right now, right before we got on, I did some humming just to get the voice warm. So she helped me kind of craft my personal warm up just for being one, for being an actor, but like also for being a human.
We've heard a couple of people share their experiences with strategies to improve your voice, but also counseling as a part of speech therapy.
Mhm.
Was that a part of your journey at all?
Not in like a quote unquote professional setting, but Annie created such a comfortable environment
Yeah.
that if something, vulnerable came up or, I got emotional in any way, this is just what happens. This is part of the process. So, but I can absolutely see how those would be like hand in hand. It's incredibly vulnerable that I don't think people that have heard of speech therapy or voice therapy have any concept of until you do it.
I'm curious, did you have any knowledge of speech pathologists and speech therapy before you started that?
Such a great question. So I am a University of Tulsa alum. Yeah, I graduated from TU in 2014. And so I did ASL for my foreign language. Tons of people in my class were a part of the voice therapy. And so I knew that there was a huge concentration there. There were a lot of people in my class in your field. But I hadn't, beyond that, ever considered it for acting or for where I am in my life, because I'm so lucky in that I feel like I've always just been able to speak without any sort of complications or needs for therapy in the traditional sense. It wasn't until this time in school, I had never experienced trouble with my voice. And Dr. Rubino heard it in rehearsal because she was kind of auditing and helping our voice and speech teachers. And she came up to me and she was like, I feel like I can help you. And I was like, yeah, because I don't know why I can't get my voice to the back of the theater. I've always been able to do this and I feel like I'm going crazy. Um, so she was like, let me try a few exercises with you. And just like off the cuff, we did. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, we're gonna need to continue doing this.
He just like diagnosed you in the moment, not
Yeah,
diagnosed,
yeah.
but sought
It
you out
was
for services in the moment.
yeah, but it was like she could tell I was struggling and to a degree in that which I think no fault to the professors at UH at that time, but they just didn't have the capacity or knowledge that you guys come from to kind of recognize it on the spot and be like, this is something that needs attention. It's actually very interesting because the more we work together, she recommended that I get scoped. When I got scoped, they noticed I had nodules, but not nodes. Like it was a different type of node that they had never seen. Like this particular doctor had just read about them. They're rheumatoid nodules. They were on my folds. They were very tiny. Bamboo nodes. Yeah. Bamboo nodules is what they discovered. And
Mm.
they can cause the voice to change, like cause hoarseness due to the presence on them. And it's because of a medication that I had been taking since I was in undergrad. And they recommended, surgery or removing them. But we ended up doing a steroid like directly into the nodes, which is uncomfortable as it sounds. But kind of something also interesting that spurred because of working with her is, oh, there's actually something going on here, you know?
Yeah, like an anatomical thing going on.
Yeah. And I had never been scoped. She encouraged everyone in my cohort to also get scoped just because it's good to know and good to have that knowledge. But what's ironic is that I did do those steroids, and the doctor, I came back for like 3 follow-up sessions after them. She said, yeah, we see them a little bit smaller, but truthfully, the thing that's helping you the most is voice therapy. So,
Oh,
yeah. So pretty cool that she was like, the steroid probably did about 40%, and then the voice therapy was instrumental.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what the differences are for bamboo versus regular vocal nodules, but so much that feeds into it is those like lifestyle choices and like habits you put
Right.
into it.
Actually, I kind of have another question to play off of. Alyssa was talking about some of the lifestyle changes. Did you guys ever discuss any like vocal hygiene habits? I assume, being an actor, maybe you knew some of those things previously, but was that ever anything that you went into a little more depth on?
Absolutely. She actually gave a talk to my class initially about vocal health, about water hydration, and then she personally recommended for me to get a steamer. And so she recommended I do that pretty regularly, and that was very helpful, especially during those weeks of long rehearsals and teaching and class. So I invested in a steamer. I don't smoke at all. So that was something I was lucky to not have to adjust. And I'm fairly healthy. So for me, it was usually just concentrate on the hydration, and the steaming was very helpful too. Voice therapy helped me realize what was going on when I made sound, and helped me become extremely cognizant of my own vocal practices. I feel very lucky to have had that experience, and especially since it proved that something was medically going on as well, like in terms of my biology and anatomy. Yeah, I would recommend voice therapy to definitely every actor I know,
Mhm.
just because you need your voice. And this is the
Yeah.
first thing people usually hear is with actors. They recognize their voice. And so I am so lucky that I had that experience working with her. And my voice feels better than it ever has. I think a lot of the problem too, when she stepped in, just I was under a lot of stress vocally. But now I feel so equipped to be able to handle that stress, especially with her help and the exercises that I've taken from her.
What I think is really awesome about this story is it seems like you are a partner and not
Hmm.
necessarily just a client. You were able to recognize the things going on in therapy and ways that you, even outside of therapy, can help to keep your own voice healthy. I just think that's amazing. So it's been awesome to hear your journey through that.
I feel so lucky. There wasn't a big hierarchy between us. It felt like we were working towards a common goal, and I felt comfortable enough to be vulnerable and to share my voice and experiment.
Really special to have that kind of relationship. With that, I think we're going to wrap up our discussion today. I want to thank both of our guests for joining us again, and we hope we will catch you on the next episode of this podcast. Have a great rest of your day.
For further information or podcast ideas you'd like to share with us, please reach out at 918-631-2504. And remember, communication is not just about words, it's about understanding, empathy, and connection. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep communicating.